That's why I started playing football, so I can do something to somebody for 2 hours and couldn't go to jail, right? So, really, growing up where I grew up, I was like, man, I can do this for 2 hours and I can't get in trouble. This is the best shit in the world. I got friends, right, who go in and they'll bump their shin on the coffee table, right? And they're sitting down and they're screaming and yelling. And I said, now get up and do that shit 65 times. Yeah. That's what it feels like to play football because you just, at some point, you get so numb to it and your mind is able to escape whatever pain or whatever it is.
Hey, everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another edition of Straight Facts Homie, the podcast where we do not yell at you. We do not scream at you. We do not tell you our feelings. We tell you what's happening based on actual data and results and historical precedents. I know. It's a crazy concept. We want to inform you and make you a more intelligent, well-informed sports fan. If you like what you see and listen to here, make sure you like and subscribe, whether you get your podcast or whether you watch on YouTube. Got a great show for you today. One of our trusted voices, one of the most influential linebackers of the late 2000s and early 2010s. He's doing great work now, and he's working with the Chargers organization, Shawne Merriman. He'll be joining us in a minute. We'll also have our prisoner of the moment this week. You're going to like that one as well. But now let's enjoy a trusted voice in Shawne Merriman. All right, delighted to be joined now on Straight Facts Homie by one of our trusted voices, one of the best to ever do it when he played, Pro Bowl linebacker Shawne Merriman. All right, Shawne, 3-0 to start the season for the Chargers. They look incredible. They take care of the Chiefs, their nemesis in Brazil. They have a couple of other really gutty wins. Then they go on the road, and just when we thought chargering was a thing of the past, they lay an egg against a rookie quarterback. What happened?
I think, that's probably one of the biggest things, right? Because when you got a rookie quarterback that's coming in there with that much fire, with that much energy, you've seen the momentum that when he went out there and made plays, you've seen the rest of the team, the energy was contagious. It passed all the way through the entire team. And not to mention, I don't want to give the Chargers too much pat on the back, but they had a lot of guys down. I mean, Joe Alt.
No, they did. That's completely fair. That's completely fair.
After Rashawn Slater went down, who's probably the top 3 best tackle in the National Football League. Now you got Joe Alt, who moved over to the left tackle. That he goes down with a high ankle sprain. Najee Harris the week before. They're struggling on the offensive line right now. Khalil Mack is down, so they had some other stuff going on. But the bottom line is, that was a different team that they played with Dart at quarterback. And it looked like the rest of the team was waiting for that to happen, regardless of the situation. It just happened at the wrong time.
Yeah, and look, I get it. And I thought Dart, the first drive was the shocker to me, right? Okay, you have a rookie quarterback in the first time, and he takes him 9 plays, 89 yards for a touchdown against a really, really good Chargers defense. Then I think the defense sort of settled in. It became one of those, and you played in a bunch of these, especially when you go West Coast to East Coast, the 1 o'clock start. It just got ugly, you know what I mean? And it just sort of felt like the Chargers couldn't get their rhythm. And obviously, we got to give the Giants credit on something here. The Giants defense is really good, too. The Giants defense is a legitimate front seven.
And I've been saying that. You go out and draft, those pass rushers that they have. And I call it a 3-headed monster. You got Lawrence up there. They can bring pressure all over the place. And I'll tell you that when Joe Alt went down, it got ugly. It got ugly fast because Justin Herbert just didn't have time to throw the football. So, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm looking to make some changes right now, especially knowing that Joe Alt is going to be down for the next few weeks or so with that high ankle sprain, man. You got to protect Justin Herbert. But it's unfortunate. I don't think we've seen anything like that happen. You got 2 of the best tackles out right now in this early during the season.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, like that's what happened to the Chiefs when they played the Bucks in Super Bowl 55. Both of their starting tackles were out, and they got destroyed. I mean, that defense just tore them apart. So it's great to hear a defender say that because so many times people just look at offensive linemen and say, oh, well, that's not a huge thing. That's whatever. No, you lose your 2 starting tackles, and suddenly it's open season on pass rushers, right?
Yeah, I mean, we lick our chops. I mean, we go out and see something like that, and we know that backup tackle is looking at us, and he's looking at us thinking that, oh my God, this is Shawne Merriman. Oh my God, this is Khalil Mack. Oh my God, this is Myles Garrett. He's thinking that in his head, regardless of if he says it or not, because he's seen us on film. But he doesn't know that he's going to be thrown in the fire, and he's going to have the guy to stop us. A guy that can rush the passer. And so, yeah, you take advantage of those situations every time you get an opportunity.
So again, the Chargers go back home this Sunday. Got a home game against the Commanders. We'll get into that in a minute, but I do want to talk about Coach Harbaugh and what Jim has done here. Look, he had a great run, obviously, at several stops in college. Came back to the 49ers and took them to a Super Bowl. Then established himself at Michigan, winning a national championship, and now he's in year 2. Having seen what he's done over the first season and early on to this season, what are the things that you take away? Because I know you're around the team a lot. What are the things that you notice that he's doing to sort of change that mindset of what the Chargers have been?
One of the first things when I got a chance to meet Jim, and even before I did, this was his first season, the offseason. I was there doing some promo stuff for them in the building, and I got a chance to talk to some of the coordinators. And from the D coordinator to the offensive coordinator to the strength and conditioning coach to the equipment guys, you name it, everybody bought in. Everybody bought into Jim Harbaugh because they know he eats, sleeps, and dreams about football, so he can get guys to run through a wall. That is every great coach that I've had an opportunity to play for. That is the number one thing. You got to get everybody to buy in, and you got to get rid of the ones that don't, because those are the ones that are ultimately going to drag the team down when everybody doesn't buy in. And once a month or so, I'll text him and I'll just out the blue and say, I'll brick by brick, because that's his mindset. Is let's get better today. Let's get better tomorrow. There's not a whole lot of Super Bowl talk. There's not a whole lot of, hey, let's go out and win the conference. Let's get better in practice today. Let's get better in practice tomorrow. Let's look at film. It's this brick by brick mentality that he has to get guys to raise their game.
It's interesting because, like you said, you played for some pretty good coaches in your career, including the legendary Marty Schottenheimer. Marty did it a different way than Jim, but they both were very effective. And how important is it for a player to hear from the head coach that they know it's authentic, right? A lot of people can go out there and, okay, I have to do this or I have to say it this way because I think that'll do it. But players can cut through that shit, right? They know the phony, right? You guys know when it's legitimate, it's legitimate. And I think that's maybe I'd like to hear your thoughts on that part of it, because I think if a player feels like he's being coached in a way that is natural to the way the coach does it, I think it becomes more authentic.
We call those guys the fake rah-rah guys, right? We call those guys the fake rah-rah, get everybody hyped up. That's not who they really are. They're trying to be somebody they're not. And I'll just, look, when they brought Brandon Staley in, I actually like Brandon Staley personally. You talk to him, you're around him, you're like, man, I really, really like this guy. The problem is just his approach to the game wasn't really football related. It was more technical. It was more numbers, metrics. And that works when you're up in the front office. That's great. But football's a physical and passionate game. And if it doesn't translate on down to the players, you're going to see it. And they hit Brandon Staley's last year. Those guys were getting bullied on both sides of the ball. They were lining up, didn't know what they were doing. It was almost like they had to process the play, and they wasn't playing football. And, you talk about Marty Schottenheimer. I also played for Wade Phillips. There was no thinking. There was no thinking. Once you called that play, if somebody switched strong and weak, you changed that. After that, you went out and played football, and it allowed you to play fast. And I think that was the biggest difference with a defensive coordinator this year like Jesse Minter. Those guys are humming. I know he played well with the Giants, but I think they finished, number one in points allowed last year, and they're playing well this year, even though they Khalil Matt and they got some guys that's injured. Those guys line up and play football, and you let football players go out and do their thing and not think so much. That's the difference in this team this year that they've been lacking the years before.
Now, see, that's really interesting to me, because when I hear that to me says that the preparation to going into the game wasn't necessary or wasn't what it should be, right? Because when you think, and this sounds crazy, but what you said is accurate. When you are thinking, wait, what should I be doing, as opposed to I know what I have to do, in that millisecond, that's when the whole thing can go sideways. Trey, was so many times I was screaming when I was at the games when Brandon Staley last year. You're seeing guys that look around pre-snap and they're doing that, and you know that they don't know what the hell's going on. And before you know it, the ball is snapped, they get hit with a deep ball. And it happened throughout the year. And also too, Brandon Staley's last couple press conferences.
And I think it's the same thing that we're starting to see with Mike McDaniel's down with Miami as well, right? Like,
yeah,
when the coach is starting to lose the grip, not only in his position but also the team. We saw that. Jim Harbaugh, he is you believe this guy. Like, he's not, when he says something, you believe it. As quirky and as crazy as hell as it may come out sometime, and it can be crazy. You believe that what he's saying, he actually believes it himself, and that's the difference in this team. They just have a lot of belief in what they can do.
Yeah, and look, they got off to a great start, 3-0 before the Giants thing, but all three of those games were in the division. Now, it kind of sucks for the Chargers that their home game against the Chiefs was in Brazil, right? That didn't feel like a home game, but how important do you think it is going to be for this team when it's all said and done to know that they're 50% of the way to sweeping the division?
Yeah, and me and you can talk that way. But I can tell you that's not Jim Harbaugh's. That's not his mentality. His mentality is, go out and take care of the Commanders this week. And matter of fact, before we even get to the game Sunday, to tomorrow's Thursday, it's a constant mentality to perform in the moment. Those are some of the best coaches, because everybody before the season start raise their hand and break the huddle. Super Bowl, but we all know there's only about 6 or 7 teams that got a legitimate shot at going to the Super Bowl. Everybody's aspirations to go to the Super Bowl, but there's only about 7 teams or so that may have a chance to go. His mentality is never that. It's not to win the division. It is to go out and handle business today in practice. Get to Saturday, take your preparation in, and then go out and win against the Commanders, and then let's look at the next game. When you have somebody in a constant process of thinking that way, it's hard for them not to stay on track, even with all the injuries and things they got going on.
Yeah. It is, and it sounds crazy and it drives people nuts. But it is to what you alluded to. It is a brick by brick mentality. Like, I always say, if you don't take care of the little things, then they become the biggest things, right? People always want to look here and think about the next thing, but if you're not focusing on what's right in front of you, then all of a sudden those little things become huge problems.
Yeah, I mean, we all know to get to the to get to the prize, you got to do the smaller things, right? I'm a gym rat. I still go in the gym. You got to go in there.
Really, I can't tell. You look like you've never worked out in months, Shawne.
It's like you got to go in there and do the little muscles some days so it can sustain the bigger muscles, so you can go out and do the weight. It's the same process. You got to go out and do the minute things to make the big plays, right? That block has to look like this. That play has to be designed like this. That guy got to be in this gap in order for this big thing to happen. And if you keep that mentality all the way through, it's hard to get off track. Yeah.
And you mentioned there are only 6 or 7 teams every year that probably have a legitimate shot at making the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Eagles are one of those teams. They're 20-1 in their last 21 games. They're only the 5th team ever to be able to do that in the last 40 seasons. But one of those teams that's done that has done it twice, and that's a team that every Charger fan does not want to hear about anymore, and that's Kansas City. They went 20-1 over a stretch in 2019 and 2020, and 2023 and 2024. You guys got them week 1, but then you see Xavier Worthy coming back. Yep. And they sort of lit up the Ravens, and we know they're going to get Rashee Rice back after a couple games. How much do Chargers fans think about Kansas City?
Well, you got to think about them a lot because they're in it every single year that Patrick Mahomes been there. Like, I don't care how they start off, what happened in week 1, even all the games. I don't know the exact margins that they won last year, how many times a field goal blocked or a botched field goal if they won. It doesn't matter. They won.
An NFL record, 17 straight one-score wins. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, again, we know, the Chargers fans know, and every team knows that they're going to be in it at the end of the day as long as they got those 3 components, which is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce if he comes back, and then you start adding in, I think Xavier Worthy is coming back from that shoulder, and you start adding Rice, and Chris Jones is still there, Tranquil. So they have guys. So you know that no matter how they get there, they're going to be there. And so that's always a constant worry, especially for the Chargers who in their division.
Yeah, and one of the things that makes Mahomes interesting, by the way, he just set the record for the fastest ever in terms of age and games played to 250 career touchdown passes, is that when the machine breaks down, Patrick finds another way. So when you like, and it's interesting because Lamar is also similar and Josh is similar, but I think Lamar and Josh, when the machine breaks down, I think they think run. Whereas Patrick will run. I mean, we saw that in the Super Bowl in the final drive in overtime against 49ers a couple of years ago. I think he's always looking to make that extra pass. So, and you saw that a couple of times in the game against the Ravens. As a pass rusher, how frustrating is it for a guy like Patrick when you think you've got him pinned in and all of a sudden he just takes that one step or drops or throws it as he's going down and somehow he completes the ball?
When you're going and facing this offseason, I got a chance to go to Max Crosby's Sack Summit with Von Miller and Cam Jordan.
Right.
They have out here in Vegas every year. And so it was fun for me because I got a chance to pick their brains on how they look at quarterbacks nowadays, how they rush the passer, pass rush lanes, how they start looking at things now. Because back when I played, you had two types of quarterback. Either you can run or you can throw. More than likely, there wasn't many that can do both. And with Patrick Mahomes, the reason why he is more frustrating to deal with because his is more impactful when he do it. Lamar's going to get his.
Right.
Lamar's going to get his, how many yards. You know that's coming. It's very little you can do about it. Patrick Mahomes hit you in third and long situations when they're in man coverage and you turn your back towards him. He go pick up those 12 or 13 yards. Those hurt because you don't expect it out of him. And so now that he has you conscious that he can do those things to you, that's when he starts to get rid of it the last second, because Travis Kelce starts sitting down in the defense, finding little holes, and then they get off their mark and he gets out the pocket. Those things hurt. That Lamar Jackson going to do his thing, but when Patrick Mahomes does it, it can really sting a defense.
Yeah, and this is going to sound a little crazy because if you look at some of the scores that we've talked about, we had a 40-40 tie Sunday night between the Packers and the Cowboys. We had a 40-37 game between the Packers and the Cowboys. We had 45-41 between the Ravens and the Bills week one. It does feel to me, Shawne, like defenses have found a way to catch up a little bit. There was a 5 or 6 year run, I think, in the mid-2010s through early 2020 where it felt like offenses could do whatever they want. Right? And then you see what the Eagles did in the Super Bowl, just beating up the Chiefs up front. And you see what the Giants have been able to do. You see what the Chargers have been able to do. Do you feel like defense is making a little bit of a comeback in the NFL these days?
Yeah, and let me explain this. And I said this, and you got to look at the grand scheme of things. If they're trying to change the game as far as helmet to helmet,
Right.
the physicality of it, and all the problems post problems that some of these guys are having when they're done. You got to set an example, right? We've all played the game. Like if I played today, I'll be playing for free. I'll just go up and get my game check right up to just have it back because I'm going to get flagged. I'm going to get fined. It's happening. I'm waiting for that FedEx to come in my locker that following Monday. It's coming. So it'd be hard because that's the only way I knew how to play the game. Nowadays, you have to instill that in them by these fines that are ridiculous. Even certain things, a running back kind of putting his head down to run a guy over, you have to, for a certain amount of years, make those punishments stiff. And I'm not saying I agree. I think it's ridiculous, but you have to make those punishments so stiff that guys start to transition into this is the way they play now. They're conscious. Now they got back to letting guys play football because – for one, it's taken away from the game. The game is still a very physical football game. You're going to piss off the fans. You're going to piss off a lot of people who love the physicality of the game. But also, too, now guys are more conscious that you just can't leave your feet and spear somebody who's about to catch a football.
Right.
So they know now. And the NFL, everything they do is long-term in how they plan and go about things.
I'm glad you brought up the Sack Summit because I wonder how much they talk about that at the Sack Summit. Because I see these days with elite pass rushers, I see a lot of them realizing the best way to disrupt the offense instead of getting that bone-rattling hit is the strip sack. To take the old chop at the ball, make that your first move, and then if you can get the ball loose, that you get the sack and you may get a turnover. Did Max and Vaughn, those guys, did they talk a lot about that at the Sack Summit?
It is. We talk down and distance situations. yard markers, when the guy's going to hold on to the ball a little bit, when you can take your chances coming under. We covered so much at this sack summit with Max and those guys, and that was one of the ones. It was like that's in their mentality. The only way I went for a strip sack, fumble and all the what we call the triple. You got to get the triple crown in that situation is when a guy just got to be back there just patting the damn ball to death, right? And I got to beat that tackle clean. They're coming off the line of scrimmage as soon as they get past this tackle. They're not looking for the big hit. They're looking for the football too. And so again, the information sharing. This one thing that Max and I and Von Miller and Cam Jordan talked about a lot. These guys share a lot of information now. It is so much different than when I played. We all wanted to be the damn sack leaders. We wanted to be number one. We wanted to be top dog. And with these guys now, they're like, hey, this left tackle like to kick out this way. This is when you could do an up and under move. There's a lot of information sharing now with these pass rushers. And
that's something that just didn't happen when you were playing.
Hell no. We I'm trying to lead the league in sacks. I'm not giving you shit. It's like one of these things where now you might have your boy on there or something, and on a team, and he might hit you up the week before and like, hey, what'd you see out of this guy? But guys are not even tight friends, and they're just like, hey, we want to better the pass rushing position and sharing information. So it's completely different.
Yeah, you're 41 now, and again, you don't look it. You look 31. I want to be clear, but the stuff that a lot of ex-players talk about, the accumulation of the hits and all that kind of stuff. How much do you think about that?
Look, it's always a possibility, right? Like I can sit here to you today and say I have no problems, and I feel great. Yeah. And everything works well. I still work out 6 days a week. I still train and spar with some of our fighters, and I'm very active. But again, what does that look like in 10 years? I don't know. Yeah. And I take really good care of my body. In fact, I still treat my body as an athlete, and so I may not go out and be able to compete like I did, but I can put myself in a position to feel like it. And so but I'm a little bit different when it comes to that. But I have heard of, talked to several guys who got some real issues, when they get done. And I had a couple guys out here that was in town in Vegas and wanted to go train with me, and they can't squat, right? They can't, they can't do a full squat or can't go to parallel anymore, their knees and stuff or shoulders, whatever it is. And so it's there. It's a real thing.
Yeah, and for the majority of your career, you played a lot of your games at home on turf in Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, or whatever the last incarnation of it was. I can't remember with all the name changes. And we're hearing a lot of talk around the league these days about turf, and the turf injuries. You saw what happened with Malik Neighbors in that game against the Chargers, and Odell Beckham tweeted out, "Please change that turf." Where are you on the issue with turf? Because a lot of this turf, is supposed to have a little more give than grass. It's supposed to have those little rubber pellets. I'll give you a little more cushion. But specifically the ones at MetLife, the turf at MetLife has come up more than once that it might be an issue.
Yeah, look, I think that nowadays a lot of people are scientists, doctors, physicians, just lawyers. Everybody got smart nowadays. So I don't know the exact number of what percentage has gone up now because of the turf. Right. But you got to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. And, guys who played on natural grass for a long time and never had a problem, all of a sudden, play on turf for a little bit and they have a problem. Certain guys would go 5, 6, 7 years with no injury. They go to turf, there's a problem. So without me sitting here knowing the exact numbers or percentages or how high it goes up from playing on turf to natural grass, I don't know. But, like I said, where there's smoke, there has to be fire.
Well, just tell me about your experiences. Like, how did you feel, say, after a game at home in San Diego, as opposed to playing on, some turf that might be very different now than what it was when you played? But did your body feel different after it?
Well, look, my first year when I hurt my knee, my rookie year, running down on kickoff, we were playing in Minnesota, and that wasn't turf or grass. That was hotel carpet that we were playing on out there, and. So, the game has come a long way, but I will say that there's times where, I like the turf as a pass rusher because you're definitely faster on it for sure.
Sure.
And, when you're a pass rusher, you don't worry about turning a corner and slipping if it's wet outside, or it's better for sure. But you got to think that because of the grass there's give, you don't have a higher chance of an ACL or an Achilles or, something crazy. So Yeah, I like both, man. I mean, it just depends on where you're playing at. You don't want to play in natural grass down in KC, in December. It sucks.
Yeah. That's fair. That grass will freeze up, and suddenly that is really not interesting in any way, shape, or form. When we talked a couple of years ago, I asked you if there was a player that you thought looked like you, and I mentioned a player that was from your basic neck of the woods. People don't know that Shawne went to the University of Maryland, and I mentioned Chase Young at that time, very high draft pick coming out of the draft a couple of years ago. He's sort of floated around these days, but is there a guy playing right now that you're like, that guy reminds me of how I played?
I thought Chase had a real shot before the injury. He got injured, and I don't know if he fully came back from that. Khalil Mack probably Khalil. It's very different, man, because some of these guys are very good pass rushers and can't play the run as well, or vice versa. So it's difficult to say, but. And I would say Micah, but Micah's so damn explosive. He's smaller, but he has the strength of a bigger guy. So he's like in a class a little bit of his own. Myles Garrett is just a freak athlete. I mean,
he's ridiculous.
I went to Jarvis Landry's, had a charity softball charity event in Cleveland some years ago, and I never met Myles Garrett in person. And I'm going in there, and I think Rob Gronkowski was in there, and then a couple UFC fighters who played in the game and stuff like that. So it was some big guys. So I'm looking at my phone, I'm texting, and I kind of just feel this big presence on my shoulder. And I look over, and I was like this, holy shit. And I'm 6'4", I'm 6'4".
You're not small. You're not small. Yeah.
So he had to be every bit of 6'6", 280, somewhere around there. Yeah. And this guy's moving like a smaller guy. And so you got certain guys who can do both, but you have someone who's just totally in their own world when it comes to that.
Yeah, Myles is an outlier. There's no question about it. Do you ever look back at tape of yourself playing? Because I've talked about this with a couple of players, and they're like, I can't believe I did that. Because it's, like you work out, there's no question, and you are a competitive, athletic guy, but there's a switch that goes on, or lights out, to use a Shawne Merriman situation. There's a different mentality when you cross that white line on the sideline that says, I'm going to do some shit on this field that I can't do anywhere else in the civilized world and get away with it without being considered a crime. And you have to accept that someone may do that to you too. And, so what's it like looking back now at tape and going, damn, I did that, or damn, I can't believe somebody did that to me?
Well, that's why I started playing football, so I can do something to somebody for 2 hours and couldn't go to jail, right? So, really, growing up where I grew up, I was like, man, I can do this for 2 hours and I can't get in trouble. This is the best shit in the world, right? But I think there's a mentality that you have to have. You have to have a different switch because, I got friends, right, who go in and they'll bump their shin on the coffee table, right? And they're sitting down and they're screaming and yelling. And I said, now get up and do that shit 65 times. Yeah. That's what it feels like to play football because you just, at some point, you get so numb to it and your mind is able to escape whatever pain or whatever it is. And the only thing you see is the person in front of you that you want to cause harm to for 60 minutes, for 4 quarters. That's a different level of mentality. And by the way, some of these guys are 6'7", 6'8", 350 pounds. And you got to go out there and do something against them. And so the ones, look, to play in the NFL, you have to be elite. I don't care. I go to the barbershop or I'm around, normal people. They talk about, oh, that guy on the bench, he never get in the game. I said, that guy on the bench is probably the most athletic player if you've ever come across in your life. It's just the guy in front of him is off the Richter scale of athletic and skilled and things like that. And so you have to be a different person to line up across somebody else, another grown man, and say, you know what? Today you're going to get dominated. And today you're not going to stop me. And I'm going to impose my will for 4 quarters, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it is so demoralizing as a man to do that to somebody.
The thing that I hate, and I I get this quite a lot from when you go talk to fans, and they're like, "Oh, the NFL's become so soft." And I always tell this story. I was at a Patriots pre-draft thing for all their fans up at Foxborough, and this little 5'6" guy from one of the Berries, Southbury, Shrewsbury, whatever, Montbury, Duxbury in Massachusetts. He's jacked like this. He's got his T-shirt on. He goes, "Gronk, don't you feel the NFL's gotten soft?" And Gronk says, "Well, every Monday I feel like I've been in a car crash. So no, I don't think the NFL's gotten soft." Can you just explain to people when they say how soft, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about?
You're still running full speed into another human being, right? There is no way to put it. Now, has the rules, nothing changed about the game other than how they call it, the flags and the fines. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So when you say the NFL is soft, there is still a running back running downhill full speed to a middle linebacker that's going to clash at 15 to 18 miles an hour in a hole somewhere.
Right.
Nothing changed about that. Now, the difference is if you lower your head or you put your head in it or there's a target and a flag and fines that come with it, but you're still running your body into another human being at full speed, and so there's nothing soft about that. And I laugh all the time because I say, dude, listen, you have no idea. There are 11 guys on the other side of that football that has very, very bad intentions. Yeah. And the softest guy could bench, 350 and run a 4.4, right? And the softest guy could cause you harm. And so when you start talking about that level, yes, how they call the game has gotten softer. How they find guys has gotten softer. The game of football has not actually got soft. You are still running your body into somebody for 4 quarters.
Yeah, as my good friend Mark Strath likes to say, they keep trying to make the game safer. It's not a safe game. I mean, like, you're gonna have collisions. Like, it's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. Basketball is a contact sport. Soccer is a contact sport. Football is a fucking collision sport.
Yeah, there's been so many from high school on of people and guys who I've seen try out for the team, right? Training camp. They go across the middle, get their head rung, their bell rung one time, and I've seen guys get up, take their shit off, take their helmet and shoulder pads off, and we've never seen them again. Yeah. Right? It's just, and that's one time. I'm not talking about going through a full practice or multiple times getting hit or lit up. I've seen guys go across the middle or get popped in a hole or stood up, go to the sidelines, take their helmet and shoulder pads off, and never show up again. Or we used to have some track guys who come out and try to play football because they are fast, and they'll do the same thing. And next thing you know, the next day we see them back around the track when during practice. They went back to track. It's just one of these things where it's just you have to have a different mindset, And me and Ray used to talk. Me and Ray Lewis talked a lot before games. Night of the games, we would call each other on the phone. 10, 15 minutes, and the type of shit we talked about to what we wanted to do to other people. I'm thankful that those conversations wasn't recorded because, it just wasn't very godly. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that it's just a mentality that you had to have your approach for the game.
Yeah, and that's what the intriguing part of it is, and that. On that level, it's not surprising what you're doing now. So for the folks that don't follow you on Instagram and every social platform that you have where you do your sign them up, don't sign them up situation, tell them a little bit more about the fighting that you've got involved with.
Yeah, Lights Out Extreme Fighting. It's my MMA organization. We had a big fight a couple weeks ago in Long Beach. Lights Out Extreme Fighting 27. Got a big fight coming up in Long Beach, November 1st. Lights Out Extreme Fighting 28. It's funny. Dana White Contender Series is on last night, and I was watching. We had one of our fighters that came from us that was on Dana White Contender Series, and we had 3 weeks ago we had 2 of them. And one of them was fighting in the UFC, Santiago Luna, and then we had another guy the week before who also fought in the UFC. And we love having those guys to go to the next level and have an opportunity to go to UFC. We got the next up and coming talent that's in the country. So all these guys, when they become champions for us, we love to see them have the opportunity. And we're selling out left and right. And I've been in this space, Trey, for almost 20 years. And I started training back with Randy Couture in the mid-2000s.
Wow.
And launching Lights Out Extreme Fighting was the only thing I wanted to do when I got done playing. It was like, man, I wanted to be in entertainment. I worked with the WWE before. I just did TNA wrestling. I did a pay-per-view with them last year myself. So I wanted to be in entertainment, but combat sports was my second passion. I believed if I didn't play football, I would have been in fighting MMA or boxing. I would have done it.
Yeah.
And so now running the show and watching our growth, I mean, we're shown all over the country, not just on my network, Lights Out Sports TV, but, we're on Football. We launching UFC Fight Pass soon, Telemundo. We're in all the regionals, Amazon Freevee, beIN Sports. I mean, you name it. We got, we're the most distributed regional promotion in the country. And so for me, man, I want to keep growing this thing. We will be a household name at some point, but I love our position and where we're at right now. But we want to be a household name in this business.
Listen, one of my favorite things to see is guys that I covered and watched play at a high level for a lot of years, because that window is short. 2005 to 2012 went pretty fast, and to see somebody have success outside of football, finding that next passion, that's what excites me. So it's fun to see you on this journey and see where it's going, and I hope it just continues to grow.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Shawne, anytime, brother. Always a pleasure.
You got it. Same here.
All right, time once again for our Prisoner of the Moment segment here on Straight Facts Home. Again, we take the long view here. We don't get caught up in the moment, and we just make sure that we let things play out without having these rash conclusions and thoughts that sometimes don't make any sense. With that in mind, let us present now the video that will be this week's Prisoner of the Moment.
They got dudes. I even think their defense is better. The thing with their defense last year, it got all banged up. Raiders got players. Now, leadership, coaching, coordinating, GM, not great. They flushed them all out. Remember when the Washington Commanders flushed everybody out? And everybody kept saying, oh, they got too many changes. Yeah, but they upgraded owner, GM, coordinator, quarterback. I don't have a problem flushing everybody out with the Raiders because they upgraded it. Head coach, coordinator, quarterback. They got all new, all improved players. So I'm not one of these, there's too much radical change. That can hurt players, offensive lines, and chemistry. But if you give me a better GM, a better coach, a better offensive coordinator, and a better quarterback, Washington last year, Raiders this year, you got a better team. It's harder for players when there's a lot of new teammates. But I get a better coach and a better quarterback and a better GM and a better, situation. And by the way, Mark Davis, who used to be one of the poor owners, he went and sold portions of the team. Now they're well-funded. Now they're well-financed, and Allegiant Stadium puts a lot of money in the Raiders. So if you're a Raider fan, that wasn't a small win. I don't want to hear it's New England. That was a nice win for the Raiders. Okay.
I mean, he's right. It was a big win because it's their only win. Since that week one proclamation of how the Raiders have changed everything, they've lost 3 in a row. So I guess it is technically a big win because it's the only one they got. And oh, by the way, they're going in to play the Colts. The Colts, who could be 4-0, but are 3-1 and played very well this season, this Sunday. And what did he say about upgrades, right? He said something about upgrading a quarterback. Yeah, not so much. And again, they were terrible at quarterback last year. And Pete Carroll brought in somebody that he believed in Geno Smith, but they're pretty close to a quarterback change for the Raiders. They're pretty close. I mean, he has more interceptions than touchdowns, and that's a problem. Geno Smith, I love the fact that he found a way to resurrect his career. I love the fact that he found a way to have a second life, that he wasn't just a complete bust. Until he found his way with the Seahawks, Geno Smith was best known for getting punched out by one of his own teammates in New York and playing words with friends as he was the last one in the green room during the 2012 draft. I mean, those were the highlights. So for Geno to come back and, win a Comeback Player of the Year award, because it's much easier to come back from being bad and then be good than it is to be good, have an injury, and be good again. That's way harder. So I give Geno all the credit in the world there. But he ain't playing great right now. There is no upgrade. The Raiders are 1-3. They found a way to lose a bunch of games. And I'm not buying the hype. And this is why we say don't get caught up in the moment here. Take the long view. In the movie Charlie Wilson's War, Philip Seymour Hoffman played Gust, I can't remember his last name, a CIA guy, basically. And he told this story about the little boy and the horse. And, this little boy fell off a horse and broke his leg. Isn't that terrible? And the Zen philosopher said, I don't know, we'll see. And then the guy, because he got his leg broke, couldn't go into war. Wasn't that great? He goes, I don't know, we'll see. And the war took over the country. And like, isn't this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, we'll see. The point is, take the Zen philosopher approach. Wait and see. You never know what's going to happen. Don't get freaked out by one result, okay? The same people that were proclaiming the Raiders are going to be this whole new thing when they're still the same old Raiders 4 games into the season are the same guys that were saying the Chiefs were dead when they started 0-2. Well, then they go on the road, they find a way to beat the Giants, a very good defense, as we saw from the Chargers game last week. And, oh, by the way, they get Xavier Worthy back, and it's like they have an offense again. And in 2 weeks, they're going to get Rashee Rice back. So just don't be a prisoner of the moment. I get why they do it. I get it, because they want to get clicks. They want people to look at me, listen to the things I'm saying. Doesn't mean anything they're saying is accurate. Doesn't, okay? You take the short view, you'll get burned every time. You take the long view, you'll have a more comprehensive understanding of what's going on around you. And that's Straight Facts Homie. All right, thanks again for watching and listening to Straight Facts Homie. Again, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're a YouTube consumer, and I know you are, hit that subscribe button. And we'll make sure you get all of our content, including our short outtakes from each and every episode. We got lots more coming. So once again, we're not going to yell at you. We don't want an argument with you. We're going to have a discussion and help you be a more well-informed sports fan. We'll see you next time.